All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. One of the things about having this kind of extra large catalog of podcast episodes is that there's a lot of artists that I've talked to multiple times, and then there's a lot that I've talked to once and probably should have, between then and now, caught up with again and recorded a follow-up interview to find out what they've been up to in the time since. And I guess on this show are in a band that is the case. I think it's got to be at least 3 or 4 years ago now, at least, since you were on the show. And I think that the best way to start this off is if the two of you who are here now want to introduce yourselves and the band and just give a little bit of information about what it is you do in the band so listeners can put a name to the voice. Whoever wants to start.
Sure.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay. So I'm Ryan. I play the bass guitar and I do the words. The vocals and that.
My name is Susie, and I play drums in Softswitch.
Cool. And who are we missing? Is there two more members or just one?
Just one. And we're missing Rob. So last time we did an interview with you, Susie couldn't attend. Because it was during the day and she was teaching, doing a job or whatever.
It was in the back of a car, as I remember. We were sitting in a car in a parking lot. Yeah.
So yeah.
So what? I mean, that was years ago, and I know you had a tape out, I think, at that point as well, or you were about to be putting one out. Obviously, a lot has happened just for the whole world in the past few years with the pandemic, with everything else. So maybe that's a good place to start. I'm sure you're sick of talking about it. I know I'm sick of talking about it, but how has this whole situation over the past 2 years affected your ability to be a band?
Well, I guess just all of us went through a lot of life changes during that time, and we had recorded in 2018, and then we kind of did like a soft release of our EP, played a few shows, and then just a lot of life things kind of put that to a stop for a while, and then the pandemic. So
right, which just adds to the length of time.
Yeah, I mean, for the pandemic, we didn't really do anything as a band for the first year of it, I want to say. It wasn't until it was a little bit less risky for us all to be in the same room that we were able to really get things going again. So we started that up, I guess, last year.
Okay.
And it's been interesting. We've been practicing over at Rob's studio, just because it's got better airflow and ventilation and it's a larger room and stuff. So a little bit better than my basement. Also, it's, a beautiful studio and it's a wonderful place to practice in. So I don't mind one bit. The pandemic threw a heck of a wrench into things. And then, obviously a few significant life changes along the way, a couple of lineup changes with the band. And it's been a bit of a trip, but for the last 4 months or so, it really feels like we sort of pulled our stuff together and did a recording
Cool.
that is mostly finished at this point. And
I think your audio just cut out there for a second. This is always one of the fun things about doing an interview over Zoom is that people are talking, but then you can't hear them. I can't hear you at all, Ryan.
See if I'll.
There you go. You're back now. You're back. All right. Fix that in the audio version. Yeah, obviously.
Cool. We ended up doing some recording, and now we're getting ready to play a show for like the first time in nearly 3 years. So
I was going to ask about that. Like what you were just saying too is just, not only the pandemic, but the life changes and the lineup changes and all this time not being able to even rehearse or get together. Is there a steep learning curve to just get back into like the flow of being a band, or was it pretty like straight ahead, just you muscle memory kind of getting back, going through the motions?
I think it wasn't too difficult. Like we've been playing together for at least 6 years, and before we actually recorded, I think we were messing around for about 2 years.
Okay.
We kind of just had an opportunity to record, and that kind of motivated us to get work done, and so we could record an EP. But I think once we started practicing again to record in December, it was wasn't too difficult, and we've been practicing some of our songs from our first EP, which I think because we had put so much work into it to begin with, it hasn't been so difficult to just start playing those songs again.
Do they seem? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, do those songs, the old ones, do they seem different now? Now that you've been through all this other stuff, in your lives and as a band, and the time between, do they? I don't want to say do they seem old, because obviously they are old, like the time wise. But do they seem kind of like out of date to you? Do you feel like you've, as people and as musicians and as a group, kind of moved beyond that, or are you still in that mode that you were in then, just because of all of the delays in being able to do this again?
That's a good question. I feel like some of it certainly, like one of the songs that we've been rehearsing is, like the first song that we ever wrote as a group. So, I mean, it's impossible for that not to feel a little bit like maybe simpler than the more recent stuff that we've been working on, obviously. But yeah, like I feel like there's a clear evolutionary step between what we were doing on the first EP and what we're doing now. I'm singing the odd line now, so that's kind of interesting. But I think yeah, I mean it's certainly it's not quite the same, but it's still the same band. I guess, to me. I don't know, Susie, how do you feel about it?
I think it's evolved a lot, but if you listen to the EP, there's little bits and points where you can tell that is kind of consistent with a sound that I don't know. We've talked about what our sound is a lot, but there's certain consistencies throughout, but it has evolved for sure, and definitely what we've been working on in the last 6 months. I don't know if it is comparable to what we were doing before. There's little hints of it, though.
That might not be a question for you. It might be a question for the listeners too, right? I mean,
yeah,
there might be massive differences that you're not recognizing because you're right in it and you're doing it. So I'm glad to hear there's a continuation though of that. You feel there's some kind of through thread whatever connecting the old stuff with the new stuff. And then that leads me to the question that everyone hates answering, and I'm pretty sure I asked you this the first time I had you on too, is how do you define what it is that you do genre wise? And it sucks as a question, but everyone's trying to compartmentalize everything in their head, and everything's a subgenre of this and that, and everyone's trying to fit everything into something. What would you say it is now, and has that stylistically changed at all since what you would have said 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago?
So I think there's always been a very large element of post-punk to it, and I think that's still kind of the core of it.
Yeah,
I think that I don't know about anyone else, but I know that I feel like we've branched out a little bit from that, I guess. It's hard to answer that question without sounding like the same idiot that's in every band. Everyone kind of answers that one the same. I feel like we're still basically a post-punk band. Susie, what do you think?
I think we've gotten a bit heavier.
Okay.
Like compared to our earlier stuff. I think there was, if you listen to a couple of our earlier songs, there's like a punk theme. There's a messy, noisy punk kind of sound, and I think we're not so. I don't know if we're as noisy as we were, but we're louder, I think. I don't know what you think, Ryan, but
I think that's fair. Yeah,
we're heavier than we were before.
Okay,
we're less reliant on the synthesizer, that's for sure. And I think on those early songs, the synthesizer softened some of them up a little bit, and that isn't really the case with these ones.
Was that a deliberate thing, or is that just kind of the way the synthesizer sort of contributed to the overall sound before?
I think before, a lot of those songs we sort of wrote with the synthesizer, whereas these ones we really wrote them just as a 3-piece. And for the recording, we added some synth parts to the recording after we finished tracking the primary songs. But I think that it wasn't just because it wasn't part of the writing process. The songs sort of have more of a raw core to them, and they sort of have a little bit more of that focus on the guitars. And I think that's where Susie's coming from. That's where some of that loudness or some of that heaviness comes from. It's a little bit more stripped down than I think we necessarily were doing before.
Okay. That makes sense for sure. How is that going to work live? Are you going to be having synthesizers live, or are you going to be keep the stripped down heaviness side of things?
So I don't know that we have a synth player lined up right now. So current plan is a 3-piece.
Yeah.
I don't know that I think we're in favor of getting someone. But I don't know. Susie, it's your band. It's your choice.
I mean, I think a synth does add a certain, I guess, like a richness. I personally love the sound of synth, but
yeah.
I mean, we've managed to stay together as a 3-piece for as long as we have, and it seems to work that way. So I think if we have to be a 3-piece, then we'll be a 3-piece. And if we can have a synth, that's a bonus.
Does that affect the if you're trying to play some of these older songs, do you have to rework them at all, or are you just playing just all the other instruments straight up and just avoiding the synth element?
That was definitely a challenge when we started looking at some of the old songs, and there were some of them that lend themselves less well to the 3-piece thing. There's not a lot of flexibility for me to change my parts, so
Yeah.
Rob's really actually had to deal with all of those challenges basically on his own. Maybe that's why he didn't want to come to this interview.
No, but he's done an excellent job though. Like he's really found
has.
like the sound to make it work. And
cool.
Without the synth, with him and his guitar playing, I don't think it sounds like we're missing the synth. But yeah, that's on him putting in the work.
Cool.
Totally.
Oh, sorry, no, go ahead. It's
no.
Yeah, you're still talking about synth. I was going to switch to another question, so I'm curious to hear.
No, I was just going to say I think that we were a little bit nervous at first, right? Because it's a challenging thing to do, to sort of rework something that you've already sort of figured out, and you're used to it sounding a certain way in your head, and you're used to doing certain things on your instrument for it. And and I think Rob's done a great job with that.
Cool. This show you have lined up, it's coming soonish. That's the first one you played in how many years now? Like it's got to be at least 2, right? If not more.
Yeah, it's getting close to 3. I think our last show was in the summer at the Albert in 2019.
Was that when the Albert was briefly open and then it closed?
Yeah, that really brief window.
Yeah.
I've played at 3 out of 4 Albert iterations in my time, so that's kind of cool.
I'm sure there'll be more down the line too.
There has to be. 10 other people are in line to try that again.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. It's nearly 3 years.
Well, and I mean, I know everyone's had at least a 2-year period, or maybe with a few attempts in between to play live shows. But do you feel like, I guess, are you the type of band where it matters that you haven't been playing in public for this amount of time? Do you feel like you can just get back into it, not only yourselves as musicians, but just in terms of, people who went to your shows before? Do you think they're still going to come out now, despite after all this time? I mean, I assume a lot of them are just people who are really into your band, in which case they probably will. But like, is it weird now, just the idea of going back to playing live, because like you don't know whether people are going to want to go out in the first place because COVID's still going around, and you don't know, whether venues are even going to stay open a month after you book a show. Like, what is that experience like? Because I've been to one show since things got a little better, and I was terrified. I had a good time, but I was masked up. I was uncomfortable. I didn't like being with people. Like, the whole thing is great that it's happening again, but it's also this unknown, right?
So I went to one show since things have opened up again, and I got COVID. So
at the show,
I went to I went and saw a drag queen. I went and saw Bianca Del Rio last week, and that was Tuesday. And then Friday, I woke up with a dry cough and tested positive a couple days later. So yeah, it's that's certainly a thought. I hope. I hope the numbers are a little bit better by April. It seems like despite opening up, they are drifting in the right direction. So that's cool. I hope people are safe. If people aren't comfortable or feel unsafe, I don't blame them for staying home. You got to do what's right for your health, for sure. But I hope that I'm sort of hoping that people will want to get out, that they've been maybe pent up waiting to see local shows again. I don't know that I'm egotistical enough to think that there's anyone out there like just counting down the days until they see Softswitch again. Maybe there is. I feel a little bit uncomfortable being alone in a room with that person right now, but hey. But yeah, it's exciting. It's a little bit nervous. It's really cool to get a chance to play with Blessed again. They're such a great band. They're such nice dudes. So that's fantastic. Yeah, it's weird for sure though. It's definitely weird. But I mean, as far as being ready to play in that, we weren't, so we've been practicing. And we've just been practicing a lot, and working through the set list repeatedly and tightening it up. And we're not gonna wait 2.5 years and do a show in a pandemic and play shitty. That's not really
I
cool.
hope not. I think like a big part of everything is all of us have really busy lives. We have a lot going on in our lives, and this has been something we've chosen to do, the three of us, like to put the time in to record together. And even the idea of like recording an EP, that comes out of wanting to work on a project together more than anything, because as you get older, like it's hard. It is hard to find the time. It is hard to commit to something. And it's really nice that we put all that work into something that it like is for us, but we get to share it with people who are super supportive, and it's appreciated by like so much, right? So yeah, I think it's just exciting to do that.
When you get a chance to take that pent up creativity too and actually show it to other people, which has got to be nice. I mean, playing together and rehearsing and stuff is one thing, but the fact that you actually get to go out and then look what we did, that's got to be a next level of excitement of coming out of this situation everyone's in.
Totally.
What are the details of that show, since we're talking about playing live? When is your next show, and how can people get tickets and stuff?
So it's April 23 at the Goodwill. Susie, do you have the full list of bands? JRCG is headlining, I think, and Blessed and us, and there's another band whose name is escaping, and I feel terrible about that.
Let me look it up here.
I can also link to the event in the show notes so people can just click on it and then they can find it all there. And so when they get to this point in the podcast, they can hear us like struggling to think of who's playing, and then click.
Let's be confident in this. So it's Blessed, JRCG, Softswitch, and Hotel Dog.
Okay, good name. I've heard of them. I have definitely haven't heard them.
Yeah.
That's cool.
From what I understand, it's kind of like a pop. Oh, let me see. Yeah.
So it's sort of a varied lineup, just in general.
Yeah, totally.
When I know you said you're still working on it, but like for that one fan that you described who's obsessively waiting, counting down the seconds for your show and everything, when is the actual EP coming out? Like, do you have sort of a time frame that you're looking at as far as when that's going to happen?
We don't. We're gonna finish recording it first. We had recorded everything. So what we did is we recorded all the instruments in a weekend. We just did all of that live off the floor. And then I went back and did vocals with Rob for a couple of the songs. And then we did a session with Drew from Bless in the room as well. And cool. So he and Rob, he helped Rob produce that. And that vocal session turned out really good. And I never heard it compared to the old one. And maybe that Rob's, shielding me from that for my own sake. I don't know. I think he's just busy and hasn't had a chance to send it. Either way, so we decided that we're going to go back and retrack the first two songs with Drew. Okay. and because I don't know, he's like the vocalist whisperer. He can get me to do things better. So we were gonna do that on Monday this week, and then I got COVID. So
Right.
we're gonna do that in a week or two, I think. And then after that, yeah, Rob's got some plans for the tracks. I think we're looking for someone to mix it still. We've got a few names on the list for that, and then yeah, I think Rob wants to shop it around a bit, so we'll see how that goes.
Cool. You're thinking this year sometime, though, I would assume, right?
I would assume probably this year, yeah. That would be my expectation for sure.
So at the show that's coming up, will a lot of these songs be played for the first time? Like, are a lot of the stuff people are going to be hearing because you know, you haven't released it yet, obviously, right?
Yeah, we're gonna do the new songs. We're gonna do a few old songs, and we're gonna get off the stage because they only want us on there for 25 minutes. And,
Right.
I do not wish to overstay my welcome.
I like that attitude. What's the best way for people to find you online? I mean, I know, like you said, you're still working on this EP. By the time people hear this, it's not going to be out yet. It might not be out, for a while. But you have other stuff that's been previously released, and you, I'm sure, have some kind of social media presence as far as when shows are coming up, when people can sort of see what's been happening with the band and what's coming up. Where would you send them? Where would you suggest they check out?
Yeah, so we've got softswitch.bandcamp.com has our old stuff on it, the goodies. And we've got an Instagram that Susie keeps up to date. It's Softswitch Band on Instagram. Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God.
I
Like
could probably
keep
check
up
that
to
one.
date.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is Softswitch Band.
Cool. And then that'll have,
Susie-
I guess, show listings and stuff on it when those start
Yeah,
happening more frequently.
totally.
Cool. And then this the EP, do you have any idea how you're releasing it yet, or is that still to be determined? Like, are you going physical release, or are you doing just digital? What's the I mean, as someone who is a Luddite and stuck in his ways, I'm hoping you'd go physical because, it's but it's not a given these days, right?
Yeah, no, I as someone who's just received another print head tape in the mail today, I personally will campaign for us to do some kind of physical release because I like to have the artifact too, right? It's it's one thing to listen to the songs, but it's another thing to have something on a shelf. And it's just nice to have both. So so I would like to do a tape, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, we broke even-ish on the first one, so I think we'll probably do a tape.
Cool. Now you're on record as saying it, so we're gonna be, everyone expect a tape.
Blame Ryan if you don't get one.
Right,
it's all good.
Right. And is there any plans? Are there any plans to release any of these the songs from the new one ahead of time? Like, you're going to be putting out a single or something, leading up to the release, or is that still something to be determined down the line?
Probably gonna, somewhat to be determined. But I mean,
well,
I would
you got
bet,
time.
if I was a betting man, I would bet on that happening.
Okay.
Yeah, like this summer, maybe.
Yeah,
seems like a reasonable time. Awesome.